the more that I learn about Bitcoin, the more that I just am completely done with the fiat system. It's just, I there's utility, for sure, but for the most part, it's just an empty vessel. It's a soulless monster that you can never satisfy. It'll never be a satisfy. It's basically a narcissist, but in the large scale, it's like a communal narcissist for the fiat system. That's what it is. Whereas with Bitcoin, it's just like a benevolent grandfather. And I was thinking about credit scores and such over the past few days, and I was thinking to myself how credit scores really are just a measure of instruments in regard to the banking system to measure whether or not you'll make them money. Like the higher your credit score, they make it sound like it's oh, you're gonna get this loan or whatever. What they're really wanting is you to just make them money. Like your credit score is a score system that indicates how likely you are to make them money. And so that's why they want you to have a good credit score. And of course they don't want to sell loans to anybody. They want to be able to sell loans to people that can pay them back, which makes sense, right? It makes sense. But I was also thinking about, instead of a credit score for Bitcoin, what would it be? And what would a credit score be for Bitcoin? And what would be a more freedom-like version for it? Well, it would be your HODL score. Screw credit scores. I want to know what your HODL score is. Okay, I want to know how long have you kept your stuff in cold storage, or if it's in cold storage. I want to know that you're not selling in bear markets. I want to know that you have a philosophical alignment and a spiritual alignment with Bitcoin. I want to know if you have actually, how long you have been in this game, because the longer you're hodling, the higher your HODL score. That's the way that I would see it. And I think that you would be much more of a trustworthy person. I genuinely believe that. I don't see how that would be any other way, because you're having faith in something bigger than yourself. And have you noticed that a lot of the people in Bitcoin that are into Bitcoin are people who are actually trying to be truth seekers? Like, they're legitimate truth seekers. I don't know very many people in the credit score system or the credit system or the fiat system in general that are truth seekers. In fact, the fiat system rewards liars. It rewards manipulators of the game, because the game is rewarded to manipulators. Bitcoin doesn't reward manipulators. And I think that that's what's so cool about Bitcoin, because you can't have, there's just no way to really cheat the system. You can't cheat it. Sure, maybe you can make money and rug pull people. Let's say Satoshi Nakamoto, right? Whoever that is, alias unknown. Whoever that alias is, we don't know who or what or how many people are involved. Assuming that this person who owns 1 million Bitcoin, assuming that, when it got to be, I don't know, $1 million worth of Bitcoin, right? When it got to 1 million, he would, or she would, or whoever it is, would sell it all for fiat currency. But at that point, when Bitcoin's $1 million, it's going to be $1 million, and for one Bitcoin, which means that the currency for Bitcoin is going to be higher than, and more utility, because the only way that Bitcoin is going to go higher that I see is that people are going to have to use it for what it was designed for. Okay, it's supposed to be a peer-to-peer cash system, electronic cash system, right? That's what I'm using it for. I have a business and I'm using Bitcoin for it. And of course, I'm also still using fiat money, and I'm also, just using PayPal, Cash App, that kind of stuff. But even then, I'm not really, I don't use it too much. I prefer Bitcoin for my business. I prefer Bitcoin, and I've made more in Bitcoin. If you want to put it into fiat terms, I've made more in Bitcoin if you were to convert it into fiat over the past month with my business than I have with other like fiat currencies, technically speaking. So that's interesting. And not only that, but I've also put my Bitcoin into cold storage. So I own that. It's nice to know that you own things, right? Like it's nice to know that you own it. And I think that's the difference between a lot of people with fiat. I mean, you could make the suggestion that the reason that so many people are having a hard time right now when it comes to fiat, when it comes to finances in general, is that nobody really owns anything. Like nobody has anything anymore. Everything's borrowed. Everything's recycled. And it's not like a good kind of recycle. It's a really terrible kind of recycling, and it's just spiritually demoralizing and degrading. And I mean, if that's the system, that's the system, and you kind of just have to work with it, even though that is what it is. But Bitcoin's not that way. And so we have a better option, as far as I can tell, along with silver and gold. I am definitely starting to understand the utility of silver and gold more so than ever before. And it's because I'm studying Bitcoin that I understand the meaning of silver and gold. Like, I wouldn't understand the utility and the value of these things without understanding Bitcoin, which is very interesting because, I mean, sometimes I wonder as of late, like, would I ever have thought about gold and silver in such the way that I do now if it weren't for Bitcoin? I don't know. I don't know if I would have. I would definitely get some, but I wouldn't know the true value of it. Bitcoin has a very peculiar way of showing you the true value of things. And I think that's what makes it so interesting and unique. It makes it so fascinating because it shows you exactly, like, I'm talking exactly what you're worth and what your time is worth. And that's cool. Like, it's kind of scary, but at the same time, it's kind of cool. And the only reason that it's scary is because you can't lie. Like with the credit scores, credit cards, all these things. Like, if you think about it, right? Every time you are trying to create something out of credit, it's, man, like it's spiritually not sound. And I know some people are selling certain things or getting loans to buy Bitcoin, and I mean, that's your prerogative. I wouldn't recommend it, and the reason being is because it's just not biblically sound, and it is just an inherent fact that if you follow the principles of the Bible, your life is usually going to get better. And I'm not trying to be religious on this channel or anything like that, but I'm just saying that, like, spirituality and finances, they do go together. Okay, there is no question about that. And there's a reason why people with a ton of wealth, yeah, they have a ton of wealth in fiat and such, but they're also like, have you seen some of these people? They like the wealthy people. Now, look, I think that there's more good wealthy people than there are not. And the reason that I think that is because I've worked with good wealthy people, but they know how to hide. They don't go walking around knowing that, like, okay, they don't showboat that they're multimillionaires. Okay, they don't do that. Because if they were to do that, then everybody would try to be on their butts, right? They act like they're broke even though they're not. Like, there was this one guy that I met a long time ago, and he was selling hangers. This dude sold hangers for a living, and he was a multimillionaire. And you would never thought that he was. Never thought about it at all, because he dressed kind of like a cowboy, just very plain and simple, and that was it. You would never know. But then you see and I think that's like there's like this weird mystical allure with cryptocurrency, and I separate Bitcoin from crypto for many different kinds of reasons, but it seems like people don't understand really what Bitcoin actually is. Like, they're trying to bling out Bitcoin, You know, that, have you noticed that? I've noticed that some people are trying to bling out Bitcoin the same way people that are wealthy bling out gold. You know, it's just kind of like you're just rich thugs. Like that's what it looks like. You just look like a rich thug. You're like a thug that's pretending not to be a thug, really. Some of these wealthy people out there act like it, but yeah, I mean, they don't have a good HODL score. I would bet the some of the Bitcoin that I have, because I'm not gonna bet all of that Bitcoin. That would be just be silly. Okay, I'll bet all my fiat, but my fiat money, but my Bitcoin, like, it would just be silly to bet all that. And I don't gamble. Okay, I'm not a gambling man, but so maybe those aren't the proper choice of words. But I would be willing to reckon. Let's say reckon. I would be willing to reckon that these wealthy people don't HODL. They don't have a good HODL score. They probably have a good credit score, but they don't have a good HODL score. So, what's your HODL score? You know, that's something to think about. But I hope that this was a useful and informative video for you. Stay blessed and peace.